Hi guys, and welcome back to the channel. I'm Steven, and today's video is going to be part 2 of my suspension on my Toyota Hilux N70. Now in today's video, as you can see by the title, is a how to install of upper control arms. Now you're probably thinking, why Steven, you just spent all this money on a Fox kit, why the hell would you want an upper control arm? As you can see in the previous video of the install video, I specifically highlighted that the upper control arm was actually rubbing up against the coil of the strut. Now, it's not that big of a deal, but when you're off-road or even simply going over speed bumps, it makes this like horrible clunking sound, and I wasn't having it. A simple fix would have been taking the strut out, taking it to a suspension shop, and then getting them to rotate the coil so the upper control arm can slip in between the two spaces of the coil. However, it's just easier to put new control arms in. Why not? So yeah, the upper control arms that I've got to go in are some beastie Caloffroad fixed upper control arm. Now the reason why I went with a fixed as opposed to a adjustable, this point here, this ball joint here, it's fixed. It can't move, or it can't be adjusted in any way, shape or form. The reason why I went with that is because I like that, as the adjustability in this is another point of failure, or another point that can throw off your wheel alignment. So that's the reason why I went with a fixed. The other reason why I went with the Cal off-road, a lot of other guys out there for the N70s are running this particular upper control arm. The other beautiful thing about these control arms is that they use OE spec or OEM spec bushing. So if I get into a pickle where I'm out in Whoop Whoop or somewhere, these are original spec bushings for both the inner and outer of the controller, and then also OE ball joint. The other reason why you need upper control arms is if you lift your vehicle any higher than 2 inches, or I think it's 40 to 50 mil. What these do is they correct the caster and camber back into the suspension, so the wheel aligners can get a proper and true wheel alignment. Now for a 2-inch lift, getting an upper control arm is not necessary. It's not you don't have to, but it's best to. Simply for the caster and camber correction of lifting your vehicle higher than 2 inches. Now the other reason why you would want to install an upper control arm like the Caloffroad kit is to install or fit bigger tyres. Now I'm currently running a 31 inch or a 265 tyre. If I wanted to, with these arms, it will give me greater flexibility and potentially allow me to run up to a 35 inch tyre. I don't really would want to run a 35 as it involves a lot of other work, but I'd probably run a 33 now that I've got a bit more space within the wheel wells. The reason why it allows that, the distance between the point here and the actual arm itself is a greater distance, so that allows the wheel more clearance to get into there. This distance here as well also clears the strut or the coil when the suspension is under full droop. So that will fix the issue that I'm currently having with the strut rubbing up, or the upper control arm rubbing up against the strut. These new upper control arms will also allow the suspension to droop even further, thus being able to get more traction in those difficult terrains. So that's enough of me blabbering on about. Let's get into this install. Alrighty, first thing to do is obviously let's get this vehicle lifted so we can remove the tyre and get to that upper control arm. Just remember guys, once you take this wheel off, try and get your tools out of your way. Just pop it under here, just in case if this were to fall down for whatever reason. But this is an extra precaution as well. I'm going to be popping up a jack stand under the arm as well. This must look really familiar.
Okay, first things first, how to get this upper control arm undone. There's this little split pin here. It's just a matter of yeeting that out, and I've got to find where the frick that went. Just that easy, guys. So once you've located your split pin that went bing, 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 as you want to undo this nut here. You don't want to fully undo it. The reason why is we just want to loosen this off for when we bash up against this control arm, ball joint. This will just break free slowly. So let's this nut for a Hilux, by the way, is a 19mm. Alright, with a little bit of encouragement with the old hammer, that nut is now loose, but again, we don't want to fully undo it. We want to at least leave a little bit of thread on this, so when we bash up against this ball joint, this control arm will come free. Just like that. See how it released there? So now we keep loosening this nut up. Just like that. Done. This brake line bolt is a 12mm bolt. Now I've just loosened this off with a little ratchet, so you just want to put that off to the side, and then now it's onto the main bolt that holds the whole control arm. Alright guys, hot little tip before you even think about raising the vehicle and getting that upper control arm off is you want to remove this airbox. Now this airbox is in the way of the upper control arm bolt to come up this way. At the moment it will actually hit the little nipple that sits on the bottom of this airbox to release water out of it. So we're going to get this bad boy out to remove that bolt. And the same thing goes for the left hand side. You got to remove your primary battery to allow the upper control arm bolt to come up and towards this way, towards the camera. Otherwise you're not going to get that bolt out because the battery is in the way. Once you got another 19mm on the other side, this bottom nut here will be a lot easier to get undone. Alright, now just make note guys, when you take this washer off, you can sort of see, if the camera focuses, you can sort of see how it's a little bit indented. So this side is facing that way and this side is facing in towards the strut. So once you remove the air box, which was here, this is the upper control arm bolt. So now I can just pull that all the way through. There you go. One upper control arm bolt out. Alright, so now that we've removed that upper control arm bolt, this is the control arm out. Here's a direct side-by-side comparison of the old upper control arm and the new one. As you can see here, this angle sort of like does a U shape, whereas this is straight, and then chucks a U over there. And you can actually see on the inside here, if the camera focuses again, just on the inside there. If you can quite see it, just near that ball joint, just up in here. So you can see that point there where my finger is in comparison to here. Let's line this back up again. You can already tell, if you draw an imaginary line across that way, that this new upper control arm is not going to rub at all. Alright, it's time to get this in. Now what I'm going to do, guys, while I'm here, I'm just going to quickly touch up this little bit of rubbing with a bit of paint. So I just sort of like cut 2 little slits into the cardboard there. Get your rattle can and then spray it on like new. Alright, now that the arm is back in, going to just tighten up the control arm bolts a little bit. Don't want to do them up too tight, just enough. Put that nut back in. And then tighten your ball joint nut back up. Alright, that's pretty tight. Last but not least is you want to make sure you put your split pin back in. Sometimes these can be a little bit of a bitch. You got to make sure this bolt is all the way around. So I'm just going to triple check that off camera. Alrighty, that is one upper control arm all installed. Look at that, Caloffroad, Fox, DBA, brakes, whole front end is completely brand spanking new and ready to adventure. So before we move on to the other side, there's this little cap here. We just want to remove it. You may have to get a little flat head or something to get into it, and then just grease up this ball joint, and then it's on to the other side. Should be as easy, hopefully, as this side. Maybe a little bit more complicated removing that battery, but that's pretty much it.
Alrighty guys, so this is the right hand side all done now, and that pretty much wraps up the video for today. If you got any comments or questions at all in regards to the Caloffroad fixed up control arms, drop a comment below. If not, just like, comment and subscribe. Cheers.